Hold on to your butt.
Come on, sucker. Let's get it on.
Oh, you want to fight? You want to fight?
I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
You don't know anybody named Iris? I don't know nobody named Iris.
Can I have a piece of toast?
I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
How could you do this to me? Really, I want to know.
Why did you do that? What you feel only matters to you.
Step back for 1 minute and look at the big picture.
And that's all.
No, not for the real fire.
We offer you a bond, a family that very few can understand.
Help me!
Help you.
And don't do drugs.
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up, and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I am your co-host, Iris, and I'm here with my older brother,
Wesley.
Today we're talking a film from 2020 on 3. 1, 2, NOMADLAND.
Can you believe I read a thing that said that they're going to release NOMADLAND, hold on to your butts, in IMAX?
Well, it is shot anamorphic.
Okay, and so Tarantino did The Hateful Eight, which is almost entirely confined to a single room in 70 millimeter. And it's like, why? But they had expansive vistas. They filmed in Telluride in the mountains and in the snow. So I guess that sort of makes sense. And while there were sweeping vistas and scenery in Nomadland, it felt very confined in a van. And I'm pretty sure a lot of it was filmed handheld. I think it would take more just to do the credits for the additional IMAX team than this movie cost to film.
Well, okay, maybe it's not appropriate for IMAX, but the contrasting sweeping vistas and the interior van and camper and crappy job scenes, that was kind of an interesting contrast, right?
I mean, for sure. Being part of this sort of migrant or nomad workforce is that you work in these giant factories, these cavernous Raiders of the Lost Ark Amazon facilities, and then go home to your tiny little van.
So 2 things about that. 1, did Nomadland change the way you think about ordering on Amazon? And 2, why don't they just stay on the job? Like, some of those jobs didn't seem like they were completely seasonal.
Maybe the Amazon stuff was, and she said, I couldn't tell if she was being facetious or not when she said the money is great. When the lady asked her about working at Amazon, I'm not sure if that's necessarily true.
I feel like the Amazon gig was a money grab because it was seasonal and it was temp labor. I think compared to working at the Wall Drug, it's probably a nice payday. If the Amazon stuff was accurate, I think that they were portrayed fairly well.
It was just curious in general that A, that Amazon allowed it, and B, that this was so much a story about the yoke of the dollar. And Amazon headed by the richest person in the world. And yet they're talking about throwing off or embracing the yoke of the dollar on a daily basis as a condition of their lives. I mean, it is important, as much as they can go all into the wild and reject society, I guess, generally. Still, they are beholden to work and needing to trade their crafts for gas money and trading lighters and offering each other sandwiches and stuff.
You still have to make money, but I think they get their freedom from stepping out of the rat race where there's never enough money. You just need and want more and more to support your lifestyle. They need just enough to support their very minimalist lifestyle and otherwise enjoy their time as they will.
I'm saying that for me, I would definitely have splurged. If I were on the road, I would definitely be a 7-gallon bucketer instead of a 5-gallon bucketer, even without bad knees.
You're talking about bucket toilets.
See, I guess the question is everybody pooping in their vehicle with a little ventilation at the top? What if you don't have the ventilation in your vehicle? One of them said she was living in a Prius.
Well, I think that's the bucket is your night commode.
Uh-huh.
But most of the time, these people are in campsites. They're in hookups, places where there are, permanent facilities where they can go take a crap. But if you need to take a crap in the middle of the night, or if you're on the road or whatever.
Because we established she was out in the open, wide world peeing at the top of the movie in like a field, unnecessarily far from her van. Like, even on an empty road, you could just step outside and use the van to block you from 50% of view, right?
I agree that she was a little far away. It reminded me of when my staff took a road trip to Vegas. Everyone was drinking and Mariana needed to pee, so everyone pulled over. And she
Everyone?
decided, well, yeah, there was like 10 people in a limo. And she
Oh, okay.
so-
I thought it was like a caravan. Psst, man, I gotta pee. Everybody pull over.
No, she, it seemed common sense, right, that she would try and get as far away from the limo as possible to get some privacy to go pee out in the middle of nowhere. So she went really far away, but what she didn't really take into consideration, because she was probably wasted drunk, is that she actually went to like the highest level in the area so that she was kind of like on the horizon on display, squatting and going
of course,
pee for everybody to see.
I'm reminded of my travels back from Vegas. It was chronicled in another movie. It was chronicled in Go, the Doug Liman movie, where I ate a giant seafood buffet, like the iodine shrimp, and then immediately got on the road.
Oof.
So somewhere out in the desert between LA and Vegas, there are 2 socks that I had to sacrifice for the cause.
Oh no! Did they
But
use them to wipe?
So anyway,
Wait, 2 socks?
Yep. Oh yeah,
2
it was
socks?
terrible. I mean, it's like Gandhi, right? Once you toss out 1 sock, maybe someone could use it, but not if they only have 1. So you toss out the other one.
Okay. But basically, you're saying it was a 2 sock diarrhea poop.
Oh no, it was like a 6 one, but I was only wearing 2 socks. Anyway, we've come a long way, because I get it that everyone has to poop, and everyone apparently poops in the closest thing they have to privacy, which is 3 feet from their bed, if they can swing that much. But the point I'm making is that this movie was produced in 2020. Just 60 years ago, we had Psycho, which featured the first flushing toilet on screen. And in 60 years, we've gone from the first flushing toilet to not only being in a confined space with a person who's pooping, but who pooped in all the glory of pooping, because that was not a pretty one. I don't know. That was so real that either they actually filmed Frances McDormand pooping, which I wouldn't have put past her, or somebody recorded those sounds in real time and added them in post. Either way, it was not pretty.
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't intended to be glamorous.
It's more like just that we have such a lack of self-consciousness, I guess, in that, oh, it's improper or whatever. And Frances McDormand is going to be the one who's going to get all up in your face and your nose about it, right?
Well, yeah, she gets full on, fully naked. Maybe it's a little methody to actually save the poop scene for when you've got to poop, but it could have been real. like you said, I wouldn't have put it past her. She's pretty raw in this film, but that doesn't come as a big surprise after she was like jumpsuited and totally stripped down in 3 Billboards.
Well, I can't remember the last time she was what you would call glamorous on film. She was in a Transformers movie several years ago. I thought, what is she doing here? But then again, David Strathairn, if that's how you pronounce it, was in Godzilla in his military uniform. Maybe unglamorous is the word for her here, but she is probably the best. She's probably the queen of this type of performance, where it's not self-conscious, where she does whatever the role demands, and in this case, she definitely did that. They spent 5 months in 5 different states traveling and really filming this movie, and she lived for most of that, a lot of that, in her car, being her person. They asked who this character was at its core, Fern, and she said, it's kind of me. It's how I would react in this situation, and how she did a lot of the time when she was sleeping in her car and living on the set, if that's what you can call it, until she told the director that it would actually be way better if she played exhausted than if she were actually exhausted, given that she was, the face of this film and also a producer.
5 months does seem awfully long when you have a family, right? Like, isn't she still married to Joel Cohen?
Yeah. I mean, but he does his thing too. And it's not like Joe Cohen is like, oh, I'm only doing, maybe Ethan. It's not like whichever Cohen she's married to is like, I'm only doing movies in office buildings from now on, right? I mean, he's kind of out in the dirt.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe, yeah. I guess they've learned to manage their separate film production and producing schedules.
And the comparisons to Into the Wild are unavoidable, I think. These nomads aren't actively seeking adventure or their own deaths, but we spent a lot of time with her in the wild and floating naked in the water. She was skipping around those rocks, and I was like, please don't twist your ankle, because no one's going to find you until you're frozen stiff.
That was one of the many scenes where I thought, okay, we're about to get some drama here. She's going to go off skipping rocks, and then she's going to realize she has no idea where she is.
Yeah.
And she's going to spend a night in the cold, out under the stars, nearly die, and decide, hey, maybe this isn't the right thing for me or something. I don't know, have a run-in with a wolf or fall through thin ice or something. But no, alas, nothing really happens in this movie.
Yeah, or if the raptors had come for her. She was lucky because David Strathairn, who has experience with Godzilla, found her, and then they walked around the rocks together.
Well, he was also like a park ranger or something, so I'm guessing he knew his way around those rocks pretty well.
I guess. He just seemed to pop up wherever it was convenient. Any place she frequented, he's like, I got to get a job there.
Yeah, and it's unclear maybe if he was following her and organizing these seemingly chance meetups because, he was clear in that he had a thing for her. At least he was when they were at the ranch, right? And he's like, I like you. I like you around. I'd like you to stick around. And she could have stayed at the ranch, but no. She was choosing a life of isolation and solitude, I guess, after losing her husband. Because it was also clear that she chose to be alone. She chose this lifestyle. It wasn't for lack of another place to go or to live. She had options.
So let's talk about it, because you would think that for this nomad culture to exist and everybody to proudly embrace it, that they were all choosing to live this lifestyle. Maybe it's possible some of them didn't have places to go, but this course was set in motion not by her choice, where she's like, you know what, I'm going to go off to Alaska and live by myself because I'm tired of my parents fighting and them buying a car for me and all this, crass materialism like Into the Wild, but rather she was in a stable home with a husband, and then she was displaced and chose this life. I struggle with this movie in trying to figure out how much of this was a lifestyle choice or her running from everything and everyone.
I'm pretty sure she was happiest when she was on the move. Those were the times that she seemed most at peace, when she was driving from place to place,
singing,
whether she was walking
buffalo,
from her hookup site to someplace else on the campground. I mean, there were probably 100 sunset shots in this movie.
Yeah, she got up really early. She's like, I'm nothing. If I can't mark my time by the sunrise, I'm going to see all the sunrises.
Well, I mean, when you're out in the wild, don't you kind of get up when the sun gets up and go to sleep when the sun goes down?
See, I guess that was the case. But I'm just saying, for this movie, I feel like we got the sunrise shots, or sunset shots. And Chloe Zhao, the director, was like, are we getting up early again? And Frances McDormand was like, this is when I'm up, but you want to shoot this movie or not? Let's go, come
on. Just like that, too.
Yeah, that was my impression.
That's good. She was happiest in transition because I don't think she was ever comfortable in inertia. I didn't even get the sense that she was comfortable in her home in Nevada, except maybe for the fact that she was with her husband, who smelled nice.
Okay. I mean, she only visited her sister out of necessity. She had flat tire. She was out of money. She had to go and visit her.
I think it was an engine thing. I think that was
the engine thing. Sorry, she had the opportunity at any given time to knock on her sister's door, and she didn't do it until she had to because she needed the money to pay for her van. Despite the fact that it wasn't the wisest investment, that's not what this is about. It's not even about money. It's just getting from one real life cost to another. It's not like $2,500 was life altering. It was just money that they spend differently than a lot of other people. But she could have gone to her sister whenever she wanted. And so it's a lifestyle choice, but not for lack of other options. They were awestruck by the idea of the big fancy RV, which still would allow for their lifestyle, but undoubtedly to some of these people would have been selling out.
Sure, there's an impractical fantasy element of the RV, just like us walking through a big mansion being like, whoa, wouldn't this be awesome? Except it comes with all of its own, more money, more problems kind of thing.
But then it just makes you depressed to tour a giant house that you can't have.
Not if you realize and make the correlation that, when you say more money, more problems, could you make the opposite argument? Less money, less problems?
I guess so. So Frances McDormand is not a nomad, although she looks like a nomad. She said that one of her favorite quotes from another movie was when someone said that a close-up on Frances McDormand is like visiting a national park. And she's never been high on the polish or whatever. I think she's perfectly fine looking, a really good actress, and super relatable and approachable looking. So much so that somebody approached her on the set of this movie and offered her a job, thinking that she would, I mean, she looked at home and in place in this movie. And there's a difference between her saying, I feel like this character would have short, practical hair that would be easier to manage and not have to deal with like shampoo and stuff. Where is she going to do it? Where is she going to do her hair in the van in the middle of nowhere? But the actual Frances McDormand was cutting her hair in that bathroom full of moths around the light. And I'm guessing there was no moth wrangler in this movie. And that's when this movie became kind of real to me. And I was like, she really is in some janky bathroom with a camera person in the corner cutting her hair. And, the other characters, I don't think, aside from Dave, who was played by Dave, there was a single other actor in the movie. I mean, I looked him up on IMDb, and Janky, what was her name? Shabby. Stanky.
Swanky.
Yeah, it was, she's on IMDb as an actress known for Nomadland, except Nomadland is her only credit. And the same for Fannie Mae. What was her name?
Linda May.
Linda May was actually going to be the central character, and Frances McDormand was going to play the Linda May type character that actress ultimately embodied. But it was curious too, when she went to that hotel, or she was talking to the lady who managed the space, where she was telling her how long she was going to stay there, right?
The Amazon space?
Well, whatever. When she approached that one lady and the lady couldn't find her reservation.
Yeah, that was Amazon.
Yeah, she said, look under FMD.
Oh, because Frances McDormand?
Maybe. All I'm saying is that this movie had a very real feel.
So Frances McDormand is how this movie gets made, and then you populate it with real, authentic nomads to lend all that credibility to this story, and then you sprinkle in some practical non-actor moths, and there you got it. It's Nomadland.
Okay.
You're transported into this world.
And so there's a Nomadland book, I guess, around the closure and the folding of the real Empire community and the drywall factory.
Or the Quartzsite or something?
Well, yeah, Quartzsite is right near the border. It's on the Arizona side. I've spent a lot of time there, too much time there for my personal taste. Not to say that I went into the bars or anything, but it's definitely out in the middle of nowhere.
Fern's visit with her sister was so important for us understanding Fern as a character, because it's then that the sister reveals how Fern was always kind of a misanthrope. She was always kind of a outsider. And her sister said something to the effect of, you were just more brave than the rest of us. And that really hit a nerve with me, because it made me think, are the nomads brave? Are they just living the life that they choose, or that's, kind of available to them given their resources? Or does it require bravery?
I have the same question, because Frances McDormand said it takes a lot of courage to commit to the life. And I am an admirer, something like that. The first part is verbatim. And I thought, courage? Look, you and I are spoiled rotten where we don't have to consider things like this, right? Like, our big problem when we got up this morning was whether or not to make the food that's available in the fridge, or to drive to Santa Ana to get a breakfast burger on a pretzel bagel bun kind of thing, because it's special and has onion jam. Delicious. But it seems like their courage comes from having to go through the motions every day. Our lives, yours and mine, don't feel particularly brave because we don't feel the hardship pressing down on us every day. And so, yes, I guess in a way it requires courage to commit. That doesn't mean it's the bolder choice. It's by necessity, and it's a harder life, which requires a more fortified constitution to endure.
Yeah, I can see that. If you could live more comfortably, easily, but you have convictions and you've committed to this lifestyle, then maybe that takes some courage, because you are choosing to be different, which always takes some bravery. And you have to acknowledge the extra courage it takes to get out of your van every morning. An hour into this movie, which seemed like a lot more because of how repetitive it was, I know that we still have to go to Swanky's funeral, because she obviously set that up,
right,
with the whole I hope people throw rocks in the fire thing or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I was like, so let's get to the funeral so that we can get to whatever the end of this movie is, because I'm guessing at this point that we're not really going anywhere, and I'm already anticipating the total anticlimax that will be the end of this film.
Inevitably. And it couldn't have been anything other than an anticlimactic ending unless she had just kept on going and Thelma Louise off the cliff or something, or someone had struck her and altered her life in another course, because it wasn't going to be the sedate life with Dave and the family and the dog.
I mean, it's clear that she's not going to have this happy fairy tale ending with the love of her life that she met on the road, and now they settle down peacefully to watch his grandchildren grow on a ranch and in some beautiful place in California. Like, that's not Fern's fate. But maybe this film shucks convention like the nomads themselves, and the director is saying you don't have to have big dramatic events to have a compelling story. You know, she doesn't have to get lost. She's not going to get, assaulted.
Although I was waiting for
gas
that.
Station. Of course you were. You think something dramatic is going to happen because that's what we are conditioned to see, and perhaps the filmmakers were trying to communicate something through the lack thereof. But I don't necessarily think that makes for a compelling film.
I think it straddles a line, because as much as that would have been a dramatization of the nomad life culture, and certainly that happens, people getting assaulted and having their stuff stolen. Still, I do think this film was striving to be a romanticization of this lifestyle. Even as much as it wasn't glamorous or even necessarily fun, there was certainly a sense of community. There was a sense of human connection, and it was watchable because Frances McDormand is so great, and you can see so much in her face. I wouldn't quite call it National Park, but she is really good at her tight-lipped reactions. This forces me to, in a way, reevaluate the process of filmmaking, where it doesn't adhere to the conventions any more than the nomads adhere to the conventional lifestyle or that which is expected of the American consumer. This movie is about moving from place to place and the blending of time, and you mark your time by major events that happen in your life, which are almost invariably setbacks, right? And so for the anticlimactic ending, it doesn't matter where Fern is going next. She'll repeat this cycle, and it seems like she's free, but she's sort of bound by where she can work, what she can do to perpetuate I don't know, a nomad lifestyle, I guess.
She's just doing the human duty of maintaining life until it's her time to go. I mean, I get it. I get minimalist filmmaking to complement a minimalist lifestyle. I think execution and story-wise, this was very appropriate for the world that NOMADLAND exposes us to. Now, in watching NOMADLAND, the filmmaking technique so resembled a documentary, I had to stop and kind of reset my thinking maybe 15 or 20 minutes in the film to be like, I'm taking all of this as complete truth, like this is a documentary. If this was a documentary, it would have been extraordinary. And it could have been. As a documentary, this film succeeds so beautifully because you're given access and insight into this world that you wouldn't otherwise have seen. But because it's narrative, I think they should have used more to make it dramatic, more fulfilling and satisfied as a narrative feature film.
Interesting. I didn't feel the need to make that distinction. I don't know that just a flat-out documentary would have altered it all that much. If Frances McDormand is actually living the lifestyle and she's just going by a different name in this movie, and realistically she can go back to her, multi-million-dollar house or whatever.
Her apartment in Manhattan.
Does it make it less real? I don't know. I honestly don't know that it matters. I guess for Fannie Mae and Screech, it wasn't that big a change because they're probably still out nomading around.
It sounds like NOMADLAND worked for you.
It did, but I can't figure out another way for it to have ended. Nothing big happens because nothing big really happens in NOMADLAND. Every time I drive through Quartzsite, I'm not like, I wonder what's changed since the last time I was here 3 months ago. I'm guessing not a lot. I don't think Frances McDormand gives a crap about grabbing you at all. I think that just her raw, unvarnished look at a person's life living in a van is effective enough so that Kelly gasped out loud when Dave dumped her dishes on the ground. Like, that was horrible, and nothing happened. Like, that was the biggest gasping moment of the film because it was effective.
A perfect little moment to illustrate impermanence and also accepting imperfection. You know, those little things that she was holding on to, they're gone.
They're not. She Kintsugi did.
But she pieces them. I know. That's right. She pieced it back together and she accepts her little imperfect existence.
So not a lot happened, but I guess not a lot did have to happen for it to be effective.
So what's your rating?
Frances McDormand is great. All she has to do is be on screen and think about stuff, and her eyes move a little bit, and you change the lighting on her, and you're like, ooh, profound. And I love that she's literally willing to get dirty. In my mind, she's actually pooping, and then as soon as they called cut, everybody was laughing hysterically and ran away from that stinky van.
Let's just put it this way. That water she was floating in, not heated, and probably really cold.
And I like it. I like what she does because certainly she doesn't have to be flashy, but she's super strong and she's a good actress and she's smart and she's producing her own movies that are out in the rough, down in the dirt kind of stuff. And in that way, she's really admirable. And I find her super watchable. It felt real and good and also very bad and heartbreaking because this life, I think, is heartbreaking. It takes a lot of courage to commit to this kind of movie. And I'm glad we have Nomadland. It didn't, as one of the blurbs on the cover or on the poster suggested, possibly change my life, but I'll give Nomadland a solid all right.
Brian and I have been in this mood where we're like, we just really want to watch a good movie. We watched The Father, and Brian was like so disappointed. We watched Nomadland, and he called it SoBadLand.
Brian did?
And I have to admit that this conversation has changed my thinking a little bit. I have more appreciation for Nomadland, having talked about this with you. It definitely held my attention. Like you said, Frances McDormand is amazing. She is the epitome of female empowerment in films, not only because she plays really strong characters, but because her strength and stuff isn't about being a woman or like being particularly feminine, but just being like smart.
She'd drop into Wonder Woman's shopping mall in sensible shoes and be like, all right, let's stop this, okay?
That's what I'm saying. Wonder Woman is exactly what I was thinking about. Like, if you want to do female empowerment, then like in a weird way, Nomadland kind of does it better than Wonder Woman. So my official rating on SoBadLand is good. So good land. So thanks, Wes, for helping crystallize my thoughts and feelings around this film. I definitely think it's an interesting film that blurs the line between fiction and nonfiction and transports us and immerses us in another world that may not change our lives, but will definitely cause us to pause and think about kind of our own lives. And for those of us who live in more comfort, you know, like there really isn't a safety net, even though we'd like to think our padded bank accounts or jobs or whatever can be those things. Like we always have the option of just going Nomadlandy.
Dad, I think, wants to do it, right?
Dad?
He would like to have been Cousin River and doing the thing all around right. On his own. But I mean, I think what it comes down to is this movie, Fern can go anywhere. But at some point you're like, where's left to go?
Well, but I mean, can she go anywhere? You kind of always make a choice, right? Like money, as kind of vilified as it can be, does mean freedom, but also lack of money or lack of having to have a full-time job and the lack of a whole bunch of, you know, possessions that you have to pay for. Like that's freedom too. Everyone's got to kind of strike their balance with freedom and how it relates. I could see Dad romanticizing this life. I could see Mom appreciating it, but I certainly couldn't see her living it. I could see myself living it, but I think the big drawback for me would be like access to healthy, fresh food. Do you have a romantic, grounded, closer to the earth kind of a profession? Because I do.
Well, ironically, it's what Frances McDormand could be doing that she's choosing not to do. I always thought that writing in a log cabin with the Coens and then going outside and like walking around in nature and then coming back to like hot steaming sofky or some kind of like frontier meal would be kind of cool.
Myself, berry picker.
Berry picker? That's you on your own, formulating ideas.
And then I retire to my little shack just at the corner of the field, and I write by candlelight or invite some people over to play music, and you play your banjos and your fiddles into the wee hours of the morning, and then you get up and do it all over again.
Yep, any one of us, Frances McDormand definitely included, could cash out right now and do that thing. The early retirement that she's looking for, she says she likes to work because she wants to work, but that doesn't mean she likes to work. She's doing it out of necessity. And anybody who can retire and could, and who wanted to subject themselves to this kind of lifestyle in their retirement, anyone who's listening to a podcast right now could definitely do that. Cash it all in, go be a berry picker, and retire in peace in Nomadland.
But always listen to Or Whatever Movies.
Yep.
So there you got it. An all right from Wes, a good from Iris. That's our review on a film that blurs the line between documentary and narrative filmmaking.
So good.
Nomadland.
So good. So good.
SoGoodLand. 818-835-0473. Leave us a voicemail. Or whatevermovies@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and
we'll see you down the road.
Sounds good.